Someone just asked me a question, say, is it possible to learn anything from failure? And I try to define failure as an experience of not meeting the standard of a particular thing or a particular system. I can also put it in another way to say that uh, failure is an experience of not attaining the desired or intended results or maybe targets. And we live life on earth in pursuit of success. Hence, we always try to repel failure at all costs. One interesting thing about us human beings, we try to find out the reasons behind our failure, and this entails our rationality that is inbuilt within us, or the rationality that we possess as human beings. And this tendency can still be traced in the traditional African societies, where they believed that there's nothing that takes place without having been caused by something. Hence, for anything that happens in the society, they were so convinced that it was caused by something. And this is coming from an understanding that the physical world in which we live in and the spiritual world or the spiritual realm are so much united, or they share a particular relationship that allows the spiritual realm to influence the events that happen in the physical realm. We can still trace this kind of thinking in a number of Christian circles in our time, where people still believe to say like anything that happens, there's some spiritual reason behind that tries to explain that particular event. At the level of faith, this may actually be true, but also let us try to look at it also from a different angle, from a different perspective. Now, failure can teach us something. Now, failure can help us to come to the realization of some things that we may not even be aware about. Some of them we may even be aware. I can just mention a few things that failure can try to help us to realize. Failure can try to indicate lack of adequate preparation. There's nothing on earth that works properly without having been prepared for. If there's lack of adequate preparation, you expect poor results. For instance, a student who has not understood a course, or a student who never understood some of the concepts in class, they are most likely to fail an exam, not because they are dumb, but because they never understood and there was poor preparation towards the time of writing their exam. This may apply also in some other areas of our lives. Failure as well may try to bring about the aspect of competence in the particular field. Probably the work output does not meet the standard of that particular work that you do, or that particular product that you usually produce. Hence, you expect terrible results or poor results if there's a lot of incompetence in a particular field. Another thing that failure may try to help us to realize is that probably we lack enough knowledge, in a particular thing. Hence, we are somewhat compelled to to gather enough knowledge in order for us to make it in a particular field. Failure can indicate a sign of having been negligent at one time or another. When we are negligent towards our particular duties or our particular roles that we are supposed to play, you expect poor results, or you expect failure at the end of the day. Another thing that I can mention is the attitude that a particular person has in any field, wherever they may be. For instance, someone who is running a business, and this person exhibits this attitude of being rude to the customers, lack of concern and care. You just have poor customer relations. You don't expect to attract more customers, but instead, most of the customers who are going to come, they will never come back. And once you have less customers, you expect not to do well in business. You expect some kind of failure. If not now, then later. Okay. These are just a few points that I can try to mention, but when a person sits down to reflect, they may come to the realization of some of the indications that have been brought about because of failure. Failing is part of our lives. Now, what is important is how do we respond to the failures that we have experienced in our lives. There are about 4 to 5 points that I can raise. The first thing that I can mention is one can decide to be indifferent. You don't just care. You don't show any remorse for having failed in a particular area or field. Then the second point that I can mention is one can try to remain passive. You just look at the failure and you are there, you just accept, say you have failed, and you don't take any further steps towards correcting that. The third point that I can bring about is that one can decide to remain in denial, where you just refuse to accept the fact that you have not made it, you have failed, you have not attained the required results. And this can set someone into a motion of panic, in trying to prove to people that you have not failed. Then also there's the last point, which I feel can be helpful, is being responsive, where you have a positive response towards an experience of failure. And there are some few steps that someone has to take in order to correct this experience. The first one is that one has to accept to say they have failed. And acceptance is indispensable from someone who wants to correct an experience of failure. Then the second step that someone has to take is that one has to review, one has to look for those reasons, those factors that led to that particular failure. After identifying those reasons, those factors that led to failure, then one has to be able to gather themselves up. They have to decide to move forward, to look for another opportunity. In looking for another opportunity, one has to realize that life is a succession of events. Some of the events are successful and some of the events are not successful, and one has to be aware of this reality. And failure is one of those events that we experience in our lives. What is important is how we respond to this failure. Let us rise up above our failures and look forward to correcting them and moving ahead in pursuit of success.